Hello and welcome to this installment of the IAUG Customer Interview Series. Today we're going to be talking about career pivots and how the role of a telecommunications engineer has evolved over the years. I'm Lori Woodrich, and with me I have Chip Powell. We are both Avaya customers and longtime IUG members and leaders. So today, Chip, I'm going to start off with just kind of asking you, um, how has your role changed? Like, what were you responsible for when you started in your current role, and what are you doing today, and how has it evolved?
Well, that's a big question. Lori, thanks for setting this up. And I started doing telecom in 1996. I was in my mid 20s, and my first role was to be the assistant to the PBX administrator, and that was it. And the job was kind of administrative. We were not part of the data networking department. We were not truly part of IT. We were part of what we called then administrative services. And we took care of our customers and our users and our clients and all that. But we didn't do anything really complicated. We relied on vendors and business partners to do almost any programming and any work that was at all complex. As I stayed in the job a little bit longer, I started realizing that I would have more fun. It would save us money. Things would get done faster if I did a lot of this stuff myself. So I think it's important for people like you and me, and I know you're the same way, to have this curiosity and have this drive to do things in a better way. And one of the first things that I did, so you remember back in the TDM days and all, the phone closets and the MDFs and the IDFs, and when you first see one of these closets, it looks like spaghetti, right?
Yes.
So we would hire, and this was the days of digital phones, and every single move, an employee would just move one cubicle. We would rewire. We would rewire if they had to get a different kind of phone, right? So I started following our tech around and asking him how do you do that? What are you doing? And explain. See, this runs to that floor and it goes to that closet, which goes to this closet, and this is a punch down tool. This is a toner, a tracer. I bought myself up tools, or I had the company buy me tools. And pretty soon, he shouldn't have showed me. Pretty soon, I'm doing all the punch downs, and we didn't have to hire them for that anymore. So, if that answers your question, that's what I was doing 29 years ago, and the role has changed a lot. And I could even ask you, because I think we do similar things, and we've had similar paths. What was it like when you started at your company, and how is it different now?
So I would say one of the biggest differences, and I wish I had brought a punch tool to show on screen. But yes, same thing. We did punch downs. And if you think about when's the last time you've actually needed a punch down tool? And so if you think about the importance of being able to evolve, because if that was part of what kind of kept you in your job, we're not using them anymore. And so I think
Right.
that right there is a big testament of needing to have that curiosity of what's next and what do I need to know to grow with this role. And so I think the biggest difference in my role when I started versus my role today is that when I started, I had responsibility of the phone system and
Mhm.
anything related to it. And that was it. And so I did the moves, ads, and changes. I did, the programming, call center type stuff. But that was the only thing I did as part of my job. And so with Flash to today, certain aspects of my role now go to other people. So like our service desk, because when I started, telecom was not in IT. We were actually under finance and within
Oh,
our corporate services. And so I was the only telecom person. Excuse me, as they moved my role into IT, we then had, service desk was starting to do kind of the moves, ads, and changes. And I focused more on the core, platform delivery and that type of thing. But in addition now to doing phones, I also do SD-WAN networking, and I do our surveillance, and I assist with our badge reader systems and our collaboration, such as, video conferencing. So there's just so many more things. And I think back like, gosh, how did I use all my time back then? Because if I look at what I'm doing today, there's just so much more. But I think a key aspect of moving my career along and staying relevant in my role was having the willingness to learn those new things. I was very fortunate that when I came over to IT, I had a great network engineer who really mentored me on, how to maintain Wi-Fi networks. And I did, prior to going over to IT, gosh, what year was it? It was, I think, in 2006. When VoIP first came out, and I don't know, Chip, if you said this, but I was like, who's going to do that? Like, who's going to agree to that level of quality
Right.
calls? And I'm like,
Yeah.
unless you have to wire a new building, why would you do it? Well, and that was kind of my stance in 2004, 2005. And then in 2006, and part of it being, attending IAUG meetings, I'm like, oh, people are doing this.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this telecom is going to end up as an IT function. And so I actually went and got Cisco certification in preparation. And sure enough, 4 years later, I got moved into IT. And having that certification is what enabled me to fall right into the network team. And they were willing to give me access to the systems because I had had that training. So I think.
That's great. Did your employer support your training? Did you do it on your own time, on your own dime, or did you do it through your employer?
So my employer did support me. And so I did two of my classes. I actually did they were offered during the week. Then because there were four classes that I took, and I just did them through the local community college. So
Oh,
they
cool.
were not as expensive as some of those boot camps that you can do. And um, it was four classes. The first two I did during work hours, and then the next two there was an evening class available, and it was 2 days a week. But the way I did it, it took 2 years because I mean, they were full semester classes, and so
That's
I
great.
truly learned the things that I needed to know. So yeah, it was a great opportunity, took advantage of it, and I do think it's why I was able to pivot into the network team the way that I was able to. And so if we think about like that, so we've got, the transition to VoIP and how that affected our roles and our responsibilities. And so like with cloud now, do you see a similar like, hey, what can we do now to prepare as people become cloud engineers versus platform or on-prem?
I'm sure it's going that way. We are not as invested in cloud as I think some other Avaya customers are. I do have a role in a Avaya Cloud Office deployment, but I'm not the main administrator of that. But I've had some training and there's something, I have access to the system. But like with voice, so you talk about VoIP, I thought the same thing as you. It was like, well,
Yeah.
and this is the difference. Say, well, what was it like then? It the PBX was a closed system. I
Yes.
mean, that was it. We had our own wiring. We had our own connection to the outside world, the PSTN, whether through PRIs or CO trunk lines or whatever. I mean, it was a completely closed network. And I remember the very first systems where we started building on a data network just to connect the pieces of the PBX to each other so we could have a more robust campus, and start sharing things. I thought the same thing about VoIP. We have all these wires in place. We have crystal clear talk path. Why would we replace it? But then what happened with us, we needed to move some call center agents to a different building. They were on a whole different system. We wanted them to be on our ACD system and not have to set up something new for them. Well, there you go. A VoIP telephone across the network to our core at our main site. Agents were working no problem. So we adopted voice over IP as we needed it for our business. And then eventually it became, yeah, we'll just do the whole thing. We didn't do that till 2016. Yeah, so I just wanted to comment on that. Just the change in the technology over time. Yeah, so cloud, we keep most of our. Oh, this is what I was going to say. We adopted a cloud solution for one of our organizations because they were moving into a new building and they were moving fast, and they were coming off a very old platform, not Avaya, that was going to be impossible to move. And a cloud solution really it fit the bill.
Nice.
And whether they stay on that forever or not, I don't know. But for the most part, I think it's working well.
And for now, that's the Avaya Cloud Office.
That is the Avaya Cloud Office platform, right? And they adopted it because they needed it. They did not adopt it because they thought it was cool,
Right.
or to save a nickel or a dime, or they did it because they needed to do it, and it was a lot less expensive, and they could do it a lot faster than.
And if you think about too, when you talked about how when in your beginning of your role, you were relying on the vendor, and then you kind of started doing things on your own, and now we're almost cycling back because now we're back to in the cloud, you're really reliant on your vendor. And
Truly.
Yes. And I think that's a big piece too of evolving your skill set. If you were strictly on-prem and you're doing all your own updates and upgrades and that was your focus, I think as we evolve the cloud, your vendor is now your partner.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You really have to be able to build that relationships and the people skills now become more important, I think, in cloud than they were when we were, strictly technical engineers. And
Truly, because there's some things that are just out of your control.
Yes.
That you can't fix on your own. You have to depend on your partner to get it repaired. And it's definitely a challenge. I'm not upset that most of my job is still managing on-prem systems. But I'm further along in my career than a lot of younger folks coming up, and it'll be interesting for them. And they have to remember back in the 90s, there weren't the methods of communication that there are now. Cell phones were rarely used, even at our agency. I mean, sometimes it was not a given that someone had a cell phone. That's why the PBX had all these features, so many features. It was the way to communicate electronically. Phone, fax, mail. We had our PBX long before we had email. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you how do you stay ahead of trends in the industry in terms of whether your company adopts it or not? How do you stay focused on where the industry is going overall, or do you think that's even important?
I do think it's important. And I will say in my current role or position, I am tasked with roadmap and strategic planning for my area. And so I not only do I want to know what's coming, but I need to know in order to perform my job function. And so there's a couple different ways that I kind of keep track of strategically. One of my biggest and best resources is IAUG. Through our chapter meetings and through webinars, I get great insight into kind of what are the upcoming trends, what are others doing. Our company also utilizes Gartner, and so we can schedule meetings with Gartner to discuss, hey, what are you seeing in the marketplace? So we leverage that. I do a lot of Google and just looking up UC trends. As part of my annual roadmap, I every year update what are the top 5 trends right now in UC and CC. And they evolve, they change, over time. Sometimes, some years they're pretty similar. But, as we move into cloud, some of those things have changed as AI comes in. I also, going to conferences is a great place where I get resources. The IAUG conference. Enterprise Connect is another place I go where I get a lot of good information. I like, and this is what I like about being part of IAUG. Yes, I can go to Gartner and I can go to the Infocoms and get, the consultant recommendations, and they have great insight. But getting to hear from other users on what are we actually doing? Yes, we went to this solution, but guess what? Here's what we encountered. Here's the pitfalls. And getting to hear, those true customer experiences, I think
Oh,
is
yeah.
more valuable to me. And even you, Chip, even when I was looking at Avaya Cloud Office, I reached out to you and you gave me some great insight around what to expect, what your experience was, and how quickly and easily you guys were able to bring it in when you needed to. And so, yeah. What about you? What do you do to?
I mean, everything that you said, I try to do as well. I'm not as responsible. I have in my career had to provide roadmap. Where's the industry going? What are we looking at? 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. I'm not doing a ton of that right at the moment. We're kind of focusing on what's right in front of us. But I've always, and I've been to your sessions at IAUG where you talk about how to put together a roadmap. I believe you presented this at our conferences in the past. And so in a way you're teaching your management, your colleagues at your company about telecommunications and about that kind of thing. And so what they say is like one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it.
Oh, yeah.
And I've always found that to be true. Whether you're a teacher as a profession or you're an IT worker or some kind of knowledge worker, to have to teach someone else about your industry, the technology, you're going to learn so much more than just studying up on your own. And that's a truism across business and industry and every kind of knowledge quest that there is. And I do the same as far as business. I do the same. I have similar resources. It's always amazing to talk to fellow customers because analysts and industry executives and vendors themselves, consultants, they have a point of view, and it's a good point of view. But our fellow customers, they have an amazing point of view because they're doing it, and they can talk to you about the pitfalls, and they can tell you about the gotchas and the things that you might want to prepare yourself for. So yeah, very similar to you. So there's learning about the industry, and then there's sharpening your day-to-day skills. And I wanted to ask you about that a little bit as well, because one thing that's been important to me over my career and the colleagues I work with is to have a good lab environment, to be able to now whether the lab is in your production environment or in a separate environment, but just a safe place to play, basically a safe sandbox to play in and test things and see how they work and not be afraid to break things, because they're not going to affect your clients or users. Do you do stuff like that as well?
We do to an extent. On the voice side, I will say my extension is my big test bed. So I'm always doing things I'm like, whatever I do to myself, I can fix it. So yeah, some of it I am doing kind of in a prod environment, but I'm using either my extension or I create dummy extensions.
Right.
And then on our SD-WAN side, we do have some Meraki switches and a Meraki security appliance that are truly lab, non-production that we can go in and do programming on. I've got an old Cisco switch here actually at home and now that we've gone to Meraki, we do a lot less of the Cisco iOS command. But back when we did, I had a lab switch that I could go in and run commands and test things. And that was a great learning environment because I could wipe out that whole, switch and then reload it. And so yeah, on the networking side, absolutely, we do a lot of lab sandbox. On the voice side, it's a little bit easier for me to segregate in the testing that I have to do.
For sure.
And then now that we're cloud, we have the opportunity so we're doing a privately hosted cloud. So we technically have a full Avaya Aura system that is being managed by our vendor. And so they have now, through them, I have access to their labs if there's something unique we want to see or test. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Oh, very nice. Did you want to say more about via user group about IAUG in terms of like how it's helped shape your, we touched on being able to talk to other customers about their deployments, but what else has IAUG done for you as a customer, benefited you and your company?
Sure. I will say if we think about non-technical and just professional development, there's been some key pieces of advice that I've gotten through IAUG, and the one I'll mention right now specifically was through one of our Women in Tech sessions. And our speaker, she was from Entra Diem. It was Jennifer Lee, and she came and spoke just about her experiences as a C-level female in technology and how she got to her role. And it's funny because I had these takeaways from just her session alone. And so if you think about the impact one particular webinar can have, because during her talk, she talked about different things that kind of help propel her. And the one that I kind of coined it the three S's. I condensed it into the three S's and that I took away from her session. And it was speak up is the first one. This is a way you get advanced in your career. And as simple as it sounds, Chip, if you even think about us within IAUG as chapter leaders and board members, it's those volunteers. It could be the littlest thing that they ask a question about in a meeting and you're like, hey, that person has potential. So even within your organization, if you're in a meeting, speak up. If you have a thought or idea, just share it, because there could be leaders in that room that resonates with them, that, hey, that's a curious person, or that's somebody who's, got the right thinking path. And so I think just speaking up, that was one of the things I took away. And then the second S was say yes. And in Women in Tech, we talk a lot about if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I think you'd be good for this role or be good at doing this, say yes, because they're coming to you because they see something in you. And even if you think like, oh, I'm not qualified or I can't do that. Now, it's different if you have no interest. Like if that's like, hey, I'm not interested, I think you should not say yes. I think you should stay true to yourself. But if it's more of you're scared or not sure, say yes and try, because they wouldn't have asked you to do it if they didn't think you could. And then the third S was show results. And this one I think has really helped in my career as well. It's one thing to say, hey, we launched a new call center queue. But if you can now come back and say, hey, we launched a new call center queue, and guess what? They're handling this percentage of calls now. Their NPS score has gone up. Like show what those teams were, what capabilities did you add to a department or a user experience versus just saying what you did, show what results it actually achieved. And so that, I think those three things, I gained all of that from IAUG, and they might be things I might have done naturally, but the show results, I wasn't. Her when she said that, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And so now I'll create slides for things that, again, instead of just saying, hey, we did this, like when we recently did a bandwidth increase at all of our locations. So I could have said, oh, we have, additional bandwidth everywhere. But I did a slide and I showed a chart. Here's what we had before. Here's what we have now. And you could visually see, wow, this had a lot of impact. So that's something I got from IAUG. Yeah. What about you? What's some of your takeaways?
Oh boy, too many to name. I know we're probably getting short on time, but from a professional standpoint, just being involved with the organization, having access to so many other smart people is invaluable. Because, and let's face it, there's a lot of folks who just, they come in, they do their job, they do a fine job, they go home, and that's it. But having access to people like you and some of our other great friends and colleagues in the Avaya user group, just everything that I'm learning personally, professionally, technically. There's always someone who's, a little bit more on the bleeding edge than you. And there's always someone maybe who's a little bit further behind, and we can all kind of support each other in that. From a personal standpoint, I think a lot of us kind of fell into this profession, these telecommunications. I mean, some of us wanted to, computer science, whatever. My college degree is in English literature. This was my plan, but, we make plans and God laughs, as they say. And my part-time college job became a lifetime career. And I'm not necessarily the personality type to want to sit in front of a computer all day and work on systems and machines. And yes, that's my job. That's what they pay me to do. But getting involved in the Avaya user group has allowed me to stretch my horizons. As you know, I was on the board of directors with you. I lead the Feature Request Tracker organization. I've been on every committee. I run the Northern California chapter now. Being conference chair, running meetings. I mean, I love this kind of stuff. So it kind of allowed the extrovert part of me to shine in ways that it's a little bit harder to in a traditional IT job, where your job is manage the systems, make sure they work great, and sleep well at night. And I still do that stuff, and I have a good team, and I have great help. But I would encourage any IT professional to expand their horizons a little bit and get out from the computer, as long as everything's working well, and get out into the world and meet and talk to people who are doing the same kind of things as you, because no one else in your life understands. No one else understands what we do. Nobody knows all the ins and outs of call centers and vectors and VDNs, variables, and how all that works, and a SIP trunk versus a PRI, and all of this stuff. Nobody cares about that, but we care about that. And to be able to connect with people like you and our other great friends in the Avaya user group has been amazing. And and I'll be involved with you folks as long as I'm employed, and maybe even longer. Who knows? And a lot of us have become great friends too.
Yes. Do you have any last tips for, career goals, pivoting, kind of as we wrap up?
I think we've covered it, and I think you've covered it. The hot topic these days is AI, and one I I didn't read the study. I heard about a study, I think from Harvard Business School, that someone new to a profession utilizes AI tools to help them with their job will, before long, surpass a veteran with the same skill set who does not use those tools. These AI tools are incredibly powerful, and whatever your company's policy is on using them, you need to follow. However you're able to, I would encourage people to do it.
Yeah.
With prudence, with care, with safety in mind, always. That's something new. I would, as you said, say yes. When they want to move you from finance or administration to IT or to data networking, embrace that. Make friends with the folks in your organization, like you did with your data networking mentor, or the folks who are running the servers, or the data, your database admins. These are awesome people just like us who can really help and teach us. And sometimes we even start doing this work ourselves. And we don't always have to rely on, kind of like I learned how to do my own punch downs. If you can, deal with your servers, your databases, your data networking. And I don't do all this stuff, but I do some of it. Don't get pigeonholed. I would tell anyone, don't get pigeonholed into doing one thing, try to get the help that you need and take on whatever you can take on.
Yeah.
And what about you? What's as we wrap up here, what is the most exciting thing to you that might be coming down the pike in the next 3 to 5 years?
So for me, the exciting thing is it kind of goes in line with the AI, but it's that customer experience, bringing the AI into the contact center. And for us, now that we're in the cloud, I will be able to focus more time on that customer experience, user experience versus the technical maintaining the
Mm,
platform. And so I'm really excited. All those and I think it's David Lover would always joke about the upgrade, and you in the next day you come in and you say we did an upgrade and no one knew, and that was fabulous. And he's like, but
yeah,
why is it fabulous? Shouldn't you have new things? And and so now when we do these upgrades, instead of being so focused on the technical upgrade, I'm able to focus on that feature delivery and, oh, what can we now give to our users because of the upgrade? And so that's what I'm excited about, doing more feature and experience focus over technical implementation.
that's great. That's great. Well, I think we're probably getting close to the end of our time here.
Yeah.
I think this was a great experience. I mean, I've talked to you so often in meetings over Zoom and so often in real life, even though you're in Michigan, I'm in California, but we've both had the opportunity to be involved with by a user group. And I think you've done great things for our respective companies, for the Avaya user base as a whole. You served as the president of our board of directors for many years, and you did such great work. And I know you're still on the board as a past president. I'm working over here in Northern California on the local user group, but I'm still involved with you folks, Feature Request Tracker and some other programs. So this has been a great conversation, Lori. Thanks for inviting me to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chip, and have a great day, everyone.